Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Mystery Channel. Tonight, we turn our attention towards the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the most fascinating discoveries of the ancient world. These fragile writings opened a door into a past that had almost disappeared, and they raise strange questions that still refuse to be answered. Who protected these texts from the world outside? Why were they hidden near the Dead Sea? And what did their keepers believe was coming? Some passages feel familiar. Others seem to belong to a world that was far stranger than many people expected. There are sacred writings here that changed history. There are hidden rules that suggest a secretive community. And there are fragments that leave scholars wondering what mysteries are still to be uncovered. The more we look, the deeper and stranger this story becomes. If you enjoy these curious journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow. And as the noise of the day begins to gently fade away, join me as we explore the mystery of the Dead Sea Scrolls together. Let's begin. The scrolls were not discovered by an archaeologist, but by a young shepherd chasing a goat. That simple story sounds almost too perfect, yet it remains one of the most famous beginnings in archaeology. In the late 1940s, near the cliffs by the Dead Sea, a young Bedouin herder noticed that one of his animals had wandered away. A stone was tossed into a cave. Instead of silence, there came the sound of pottery breaking. Inside were tall jars, and inside some of those jars were ancient manuscripts. It is the kind of discovery that feels less like a planned excavation and more like a door opening by accident. Some people see this as pure chance. Others wonder whether the scrolls were always meant to be found at a certain moment, after sleeping through centuries of empire, religion, and war. What makes the story so gripping is that the modern world did not gently uncover the scrolls. It stumbled into them. Hidden caves near Qumran preserved texts older than Christianity itself. The setting matters because these writings were not kept in a palace, a grand archive, or a famous temple. They were found in rugged caves near an ancient site called Qumran, close to one of the most severe landscapes on Earth. The age of the manuscripts stunned scholars because many of them came from the centuries before and around the beginning of Christianity. That meant people were suddenly reading religious texts copied long before the medieval manuscripts that had shaped later tradition. The past had moved closer. The time between the biblical world and the modern reader had shortened in a dramatic way. These caves became more than holes in the rock. They became sealed chambers of memory. Some researchers see a library hidden in crisis. Others imagine a guarded collection placed beyond ordinary reach. Either way, the discovery made one thing clear. The ancient world had been speaking from a much older layer than anyone expected. One scroll may describe a real treasure still buried somewhere. The copper scroll is unlike almost everything else found near Qumran because it reads less like a religious meditation and more like a set of directions. It lists locations and deposits of precious materials, using practical language that has tempted treasure hunters for generations. The strange part is that nobody can agree on whether it records actual wealth, temple valuables hidden during danger, or something symbolic that was never meant to be dug up. Its details feel stubbornly concrete. Measurements are given. Places are named. The tone can sound like an inventory from a world on the edge of disaster. Yet the locations are often difficult to identify today, and the landscape has changed across centuries. Some people believe the scroll points to riches still concealed beneath ruins or earth. Others think its treasure may have vanished long ago. The mystery remains powerful because it offers a rare ancient text that almost seems to whisper, "Go and look." The Great Isaiah Scroll is almost the entire biblical book. For many people, this manuscript is the moment the discovery becomes truly breathtaking. It contains nearly all of Isaiah, copied more than 2,000 years ago, and it gives us an astonishing view of how carefully sacred writings could be preserved. Before its discovery, many familiar biblical manuscripts were far younger. Suddenly, there was a version from deep antiquity, written in columns on a long roll of leather. Its survival raised huge questions about transmission, memory, and religious devotion. How close was this ancient copy to later versions? Where did it differ? What did those differences mean? Some readers find comfort in the continuity. Others are fascinated by the places where the text shows movement, variation, and human hands at work. It is not just a manuscript. It is a direct encounter with a scribe who lived in a world of expectation and uncertainty, yet copied words that would travel far beyond his lifetime. Scholars still argue who actually wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. The most famous answer points to the Essenes, an ancient Jewish group often described as strict, separate, and deeply concerned with purity. That theory became popular because certain scrolls seem to describe a disciplined community, and Qumran appears to match part of that picture. Yet the case is not closed. Some researchers argue the manuscripts came from Jerusalem and were hidden near the Dead Sea during a time of danger. Others think several groups may have contributed texts, which would make the collection less like a single community library and more like a gathering of voices from a troubled age. The debate matters because authorship changes the meaning of everything. A rule book sounds different if it came from an isolated sect. A biblical manuscript feels different if it was rescued from a major religious center. The handwriting remains silent about names, but the question keeps pulling scholars back to the caves. Some fragments suggest lost versions of familiar biblical stories. One of the most startling effects of the discoveries is that well-known stories did not always appear in exactly the form many later readers expected. Small variations can be enough to open a large door. A phrase may differ. A passage may appear in another order. A line may suggest that ancient communities knew versions that did not survive in the same way. This does not make the stories less fascinating. It makes them feel alive within history. Sacred tradition was being copied, guarded, interpreted, and sometimes expanded in a world where written texts existed beside memory and teaching. Some people imagine hidden originals behind these fragments. Others see normal scribal variation before later traditions became more fixed. The mystery is not only what changed. It is what disappeared completely. Every torn edge hints at a larger manuscript, and every missing line invites the mind to wonder what ancient readers once heard. A forgotten desert community may have expected the world to end. Many of the writings carry the charge of people who believed history was moving toward a final reckoning. Their language divides the world into opposing forces and imagines a coming moment when hidden truth would be revealed. This was not casual curiosity about the future. It appears to have shaped daily life, group identity, and the meaning of obedience. If Qumran was connected to such a community, then those people may have lived with the feeling that ordinary time was almost finished. That idea changes the landscape around them. A meal becomes preparation. A rule becomes protection. A cave becomes a refuge for writings that must survive the crisis. Some people see this as intense religious expectation during a violent century. Others wonder whether the group believed they had received secret knowledge about the structure of history itself. Either way, the scrolls preserve the mindset of people standing at the edge of an imagined turning point. The copper scroll was written on metal instead of parchment. That choice alone makes it feel like an object from another category of mystery. Most ancient manuscripts were written on materials that could decay, tear, or burn. This one was engraved onto thin sheets of copper, which had corroded so badly that it could not simply be unrolled. It had to be carefully cut apart, a process that sounds almost painful for something so rare. The result was a text that looked more durable, more deliberate, and perhaps more urgent than ordinary writing. Why use metal for this message? Was it meant to survive destruction? Was it created to protect information too important for leather or papyrus? Some believe the material supports the idea of real treasure records. Others think the copper itself may have carried symbolic importance. Its very form deepens the puzzle. It was not merely written. It was inscribed for endurance, as though someone feared paper would not last long enough. Ancient jars kept fragile secrets sealed for nearly 2,000 years. The pottery vessels found with the manuscripts became part of the mystery because they suggest intention. Scrolls do not simply remain preserved by accident when the centuries are that long. Someone ruled them. Someone stored them. Someone placed them where darkness, dryness, and isolation might protect them. These jars were not glamorous objects, but they became silent guardians of an entire lost world. Their presence raises practical questions. Were they made specifically for manuscripts? Were they used in a hurry? Did the people hiding the texts expect to return for them? The answers are uncertain, and that uncertainty gives the jars an almost human quality. They stand between the ancient hands that sealed the writings away and the modern hands that opened them again. Some jars were empty when found, which adds another layer. Were their contents removed in antiquity, stolen recently, or destroyed by time? Even the containers seem to keep secrets. Modern technology is revealing words that vanished from human sight. The story did not end when the scrolls were first unrolled and photographed. In some ways, it entered a new phase when imaging tools began to detect letters that ordinary eyes could no longer read. Faded ink, darkened leather, and damaged surfaces can now be studied through techniques that separate hidden traces from the background. This means the scrolls are still producing surprises long after their discovery. A fragment once dismissed as unreadable may suddenly offer a word. A word may change the interpretation of a line. A line may connect one broken piece to another. The process can feel almost like listening to a voice return after being buried in silence. Some people wonder how much more remains concealed in damaged fragments already stored in collections. The strange part is that the next discovery may not require a new cave at all. It may already be sitting in a drawer, waiting for better eyes. Bedouin shepherds reportedly sold priceless scrolls for almost nothing. The early trade in the manuscripts is one of the most astonishing parts of the whole story. When the first finds emerged, their importance was not immediately understood by everyone involved. Ancient pieces moved through local hands, dealers, scholars, and institutions in a way that now seems almost unbelievable. Objects that would later be considered priceless were reportedly bought and sold for modest sums at the beginning. That gap between ordinary transaction and world-changing discovery gives the story a dramatic tension. It also raises difficult questions about ownership, preservation, and what may have been lost during the rush to buy fragments. Some pieces were handled before experts could record their original setting. Others entered private collections, where their history became cloudy. The modern fascination is not only that the scrolls survived the ancient world. It is that they also survived the chaos of their rediscovery, when nobody yet knew the full size of the doorway that had opened. Cave 4 produced thousands of fragments from hundreds of manuscripts. This cave changed the scale of the discovery completely. Instead of a few dramatic scrolls, it yielded a huge puzzle made from torn pieces, many of them tiny and difficult to place. Imagine trying to reconstruct a library after the pages had been shredded, mixed, darkened, and scattered across time. That is the challenge Cave 4 gave to scholars. Its fragments came from many different works, including biblical writings, community rules, commentaries, hymns, and texts that had been forgotten outside this desert archive. The sheer quantity created both excitement and confusion. Every scrap might belong to a known book, a lost work, or a copy unlike any other. Some people see this cave as the heart of the collection. Others wonder whether its disorder hints at looting, damage, or hurried concealment. It is one of the reasons the scrolls still feel unfinished. The evidence exists, but much of it arrived broken into whispers. The scrolls were hidden during a time of fear and revolt. The 1st century was not a calm backdrop for these manuscripts. Judea was under Roman power, tensions were rising, and the destruction of Jerusalem would soon become one of the defining tragedies of the age. In that atmosphere, hiding texts in remote caves makes immediate sense. Written works could be more than possessions. They could preserve law, memory, identity, and hope. If danger was approaching, manuscripts may have been carried out of vulnerable places and placed where soldiers were less likely to search. Yet the details remain debated. Were the scrolls hidden by the people of Qumran? Were they brought from elsewhere? Did anyone survive who remembered where they had been placed? The caves suggest urgency, but not a complete story. Their silence leaves room for many possibilities. What we can feel is the pressure of a world under threat, where saving words may have seemed as important as saving treasure. Qumran may have been a monastery, fortress, factory, or library. The ruins near the caves have become one of the most argued places in biblical archaeology. At first, many imagined a disciplined religious settlement where scribes lived, copied texts, followed strict rules, and prepared for the end of the age. Then, other interpretations entered the conversation. Some saw defensive features. Others noticed industrial possibilities connected with pottery or date processing. Some suggested that the manuscripts were not copied there at all, and that the site was only near the hiding places. Each theory changes the atmosphere of the ruins. A religious center makes the scrolls feel local and intentional. A practical settlement makes the caves more mysterious. A refuge during crisis points toward emergency rather than routine. The stones do not explain themselves. Pools, rooms, pottery, and inkwells can support more than one story. That is why Qumran remains so compelling. It is not just where the scrolls were found. It is a riddle beside them. Several biblical books appear in versions unlike later traditional texts. The differences can be small, but their implications are enormous. Before the scrolls, many people imagined the ancient biblical text as a single fixed stream, moving neatly through history. The manuscripts showed something more complicated. Some copies stand close to later Hebrew tradition. Others resemble ancient translations or preserve readings that do not fit the expected pattern. This suggests that, in the centuries around Qumran, sacred writings could circulate in more than one form. That idea can feel unsettling at first, but it also makes the past more vivid. We are seeing a world before every boundary had hardened. Scribes were careful, but they were also living inside a tradition still being transmitted by human hands. Some people believe these differences point toward suppressed versions of Scripture. Others see a normal stage in textual history. The mystery is not whether variation existed. The deeper question is how ancient communities decided which forms carried authority. The Book of Enoch appears among the scrolls in ancient fragments. This matters because Enoch is one of the most electrifying works from the world around the Bible. It speaks of heavenly journeys, angelic rebellion, hidden knowledge, cosmic judgment and a universe crowded with powers beyond ordinary sight. Later, it would remain especially important in some traditions while standing outside many familiar biblical canons. Finding fragments of it near Qumran showed that ancient readers in this circle valued stories that many modern readers barely knew. That changes the mood of the whole collection. The scrolls were not only preserving texts that later became widely accepted, they also carried works that opened stranger doors. Some people see Enoch as evidence of a suppressed spiritual worldview, one where the boundary between earth and heaven felt thinner. Others treat it as a powerful example of Jewish apocalyptic imagination. Either way, its presence proves that the ancient library was broader, bolder, and more surprising than many expected. Some writings describe angels with strange names and cosmic duties. The scrolls sometimes open onto a universe where unseen beings are active, organized, and deeply involved in the struggle over human history. Angelic names appear in texts connected with worship, protection, judgment, and heavenly order. For modern listeners, this can feel like entering a worldview, where the visible world is only the surface. The people behind these writings did not imagine faith as merely private thought. They pictured existence as layered, with spiritual forces surrounding ordinary life. Some passages place human worship alongside heavenly praise, as if the community believed its rituals joined a larger cosmic pattern. Alternative thinkers often linger here because the language can sound like coded knowledge from a hidden realm. Mainstream scholars usually frame it within ancient Jewish angelology and apocalyptic tradition. Both approaches recognize the same fascination. These texts preserve a mind stretching beyond the everyday, trying to map powers that could not be seen but were believed to shape everything. The War Scroll imagines a final battle between light and darkness. Few texts from Qumran are as cinematic in their basic idea. It describes a conflict between the sons of light and the forces opposed to them, with battle formations, sacred signals, priestly involvement, and divine intervention. This is not a casual metaphor. It reads like a community imagining history as a staged confrontation with cosmic meaning. The details are strange because they combine military planning with religious expectation. Trumpets, banners, and formations become part of a sacred drama. The people behind the text may have believed that earthly conflict reflected a much larger struggle. Some readers see a symbolic vision of good overcoming evil. Others wonder whether it was a manual for an expected war that never happened in the way its writers imagined. Its power comes from that uncertainty. Was it prophecy, planning, ritual script, or spiritual theater? The answer remains unclear, but the intensity of belief is impossible to miss. Tiny scraps have forced scholars to rebuild entire ancient books. Many fragments are so small that they contain only a few letters or partial words. Yet those pieces can still matter. A single scrap may identify a lost manuscript, confirm the existence of a rare text, or help connect scattered pieces from the same original scroll. The work requires patience that almost feels impossible from the outside. Scholars compare handwriting, spacing, material, language, and surviving lines, trying to decide where a fragment belongs. Sometimes a piece fits a known passage. Sometimes it points toward a work that has no complete copy. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls become less like a discovery and more like an enormous reconstruction game played across generations. Some people imagine hidden messages in the fragments. Others focus on the careful craft of rebuilding ancient literature from damage. Either way, the scraps have power because they prove that even the smallest remnant can change the shape of a forgotten book. The Temple Scroll describes a sacred building that was never built. This manuscript is remarkable because it lays out an idealized vision of worship with striking confidence. It does not merely comment on earlier law. It expands, rearranges, and presents instructions in a voice that can feel commanding. At the center is a vision of a temple and a sacred order that did not match the Jerusalem reality known from history. That raises a fascinating question. Was the writer dreaming of a perfect future sanctuary? Was this a critique of the existing priesthood? Or was it claiming access to a purer design that had been ignored by those in power? Some people read it as evidence of a rival religious blueprint, preserved outside official control. Others see it as an intense act of interpretation rather than a political program. What makes it compelling is the scale of its ambition. It imagines holiness not as a vague feeling, but as a complete system waiting to be made real. Ancient ink still clings to leather after impossible centuries. The survival of the writing itself is almost as remarkable as the survival of the manuscripts. Ink is fragile. Leather can crack, darken, shrink, or turn brittle. Yet on many fragments, the strokes still hold the motion of an ancient hand. Someone dipped a pen, shaped letters, paused, corrected, and continued. That physical connection is powerful because it collapses distance. The scrolls are not only texts, they are traces of concentration left by real people who believed these words mattered enough to copy carefully. The recipe for the ink has also attracted attention because it had to bond with the writing surface and endure harsh conditions. Some marks remain crisp. Others fade into the background like a thought almost lost. To some people, that endurance feels like chance. To others, it feels like design. Either way, the black lines on those ancient skins have outlasted kingdoms, languages, and entire ways of life. The scrolls changed how scholars understand the Hebrew Bible. Before these discoveries, many ancient biblical passages were known mainly through manuscripts copied much later. Then the scrolls pushed the evidence back by more than a millennium in certain cases. That changed the conversation instantly. It allowed experts to compare older copies with later traditions and see where the text had stayed stable, where it had shifted, and where different streams of transmission once existed side by side. For ordinary listeners, the most fascinating part is simple. The Bible suddenly had a deeper paper trail. It was no longer only a question of faith, memory, or later copying. There were physical manuscripts from a world much closer to the origins of these traditions. Some people found that reassuring. Others found it explosive because it showed a living textual world rather than a perfectly frozen one. The scrolls did not close the debate. They made the debate far richer, stranger, and more grounded in ancient evidence. Some texts were written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. The languages of the scrolls reveal a world more connected than many people imagine. Hebrew carried sacred weight and deep cultural identity. Aramaic was widely used across daily life, storytelling, and regional communication. Greek pointed toward the wider influence of empire and the Mediterranean world. This mix matters because it shows that the people connected to these writings were not living in a sealed bubble of a single tongue. They inherited older traditions while also moving through a world shaped by contact, translation, and power. A text in one language might feel formal and scriptural. Another might feel closer to popular narrative or interpretation. Some people wonder whether certain language choices were deliberate signals, meant for insiders who understood different layers of meaning. Others see the blend as a natural reflection of the age. The result is a collection that speaks with more than one voice, even before its ideas are considered. The Essenes may have copied scrolls beside the Dead Sea. The Essene theory remains famous because it offers a vivid picture. Imagine a disciplined group living near a harsh shore, separating itself from the wider world and devoting energy to purity, study, and expectation. Ancient writers described the Essenes as unusual, serious, and communal. Some features in the scrolls seem to match that picture closely enough to make the connection tempting. The rules about admission, meals, property, and conduct feel like the habits of a tightly organized brotherhood. If they were responsible for copying or preserving the manuscripts, then the scrolls become the library of a community with a powerful sense of mission. Yet the idea still faces challenges. Not every text fits neatly inside one group. Some people believe the Essene label may be too simple for such a varied collection. Still, the image remains compelling. It places the manuscripts in the hands of people who thought ordinary society had lost its way. Other theories place the scrolls in Jerusalem before Roman destruction. This possibility changes the entire mood of the discovery. Instead of beginning as a local Qumran library, the manuscripts may have started in the great religious center of the Jewish world. If they came from Jerusalem, then the caves could have served as emergency hiding places during a terrifying crisis. That would make the scrolls survivors of a larger cultural rescue effort. The idea is attractive because the collection is so broad. It includes many kinds of writings, which may be easier to explain as material gathered from major libraries or priestly circles. Some people imagine hurried movement out of the city as danger tightened around it. Others think this theory explains why the scrolls do not all share one clear viewpoint. The question remains unsettled because the caves preserve the ending of the journey, not necessarily the beginning. A manuscript found near Qumran may still have lived a long, earlier life somewhere else. The caves may have hidden a library from advancing Roman soldiers. There is a powerful urgency behind this idea. When war approaches, people decide what must be saved. Food can be replaced. Buildings can be rebuilt. But a sacred text, a legal tradition, or a treasured commentary might be irreplaceable. Placing manuscripts in caves could have been an act of cultural survival. The Dead Sea region offered isolation, rough terrain, and natural hiding places that might protect scrolls from troops moving through the land. This does not prove exactly who hid them, but it gives the act a human motive. Someone may have believed that the world they knew was about to collapse. The manuscripts then become more than ancient documents. They become items carried into danger by people trying to preserve memory itself. Some people take the theory further and wonder whether the hiding places were known only to a few trusted guardians. The tragedy is that those guardians may never have returned. Fragment hunters created confusion by tearing pieces into smaller pieces. The modern marketplace around the scrolls introduced a problem that still casts a shadow. When fragments became valuable, small pieces could sometimes bring more profit than larger ones. That created temptation, and it damaged the historical record in ways that cannot easily be repaired. A torn fragment loses more than size. It loses context, edges, relationships, and clues about where it belonged. Scholars later had to work with pieces that may have been separated after discovery rather than in antiquity. That means some puzzles were made harder by modern hands, not ancient decay. The story feels almost unbelievable because the world had found one of its greatest manuscript treasures, and yet part of it was being broken further. Some people see this as simple greed. Others view it as the chaos of a discovery that outpaced proper control. Either way, the fragments carry not only ancient damage, but the marks of a complicated 20th century. The scrolls include prayers that sound intensely personal and secretive. Not every text feels like a public rule or grand vision. Some writings speak in a voice that seems inward, vulnerable, and deeply aware of hidden struggle. These prayers and hymns can sound like someone standing before the divine with a sense of being chosen, tested, and surrounded by danger. That personal tone is striking because it brings us closer to the emotional life behind the community. The writers were not only preserving doctrine, they were wrestling with fear, gratitude, weakness, and certainty. Some passages suggest a person who believes he has been lifted out of ordinary understanding and given access to truth others cannot see. Alternative readers often hear coded initiation in that voice. More cautious interpreters hear intense religious devotion shaped by conflict. Both views recognize that these are not cold documents. They carry the pressure of lived experience, as though the ancient writer wanted more than instruction. He wanted to be known by heaven. Some rules describe a community with strict meals and punishments. The rule texts can make the group behind them feel startlingly real. They describe order, discipline, rank, and consequences for misconduct. Even a meal could become a sacred event with proper seating and controlled participation. This suggests a society where daily behavior was loaded with spiritual meaning. A careless word might matter. A breach of discipline could threaten more than social harmony. It could endanger the purity of the whole group. The punishments sometimes appear severe to modern ears, yet they reveal how seriously the community guarded its identity. Entry was not casual. Belonging had to be tested and maintained. Some people see this as evidence of a closed society protecting secret knowledge. Others view it as a religious movement, trying to create holiness through structure. What makes the rules so fascinating is their detail. They do not describe an idea floating in the mind. They describe a life that people actually tried to live. The Damascus document hints at a mysterious teacher of righteousness. This text brings us close to one of the most intriguing figures connected with the scrolls. The teacher appears as a guide who understood sacred law in a special way and led a group through conflict. Yet he is never introduced with a clear personal name. That absence has kept the mystery alive for decades. Was he a priest? A reformer? A rejected leader? A visionary who believed he had uncovered the true meaning of Scripture? The document suggests that his followers saw him as central to their identity. Through him, they understood their own history and their separation from opponents. Some people imagine a suppressed spiritual master behind the title. Others place him within the fierce religious disputes of the 2nd century before Christ. The lack of a name makes him more powerful in the imagination. He stands there as a shadowed authority, important enough to shape a movement, but hidden enough to remain unresolved. Nobody knows the true identity of the teacher of righteousness. Theories have gathered around this figure because the scrolls seem to invite identification while withholding proof. Some have linked him to known priests from the Second Temple period. Others suggest he was a leader whose name vanished because later history was written by his opponents. The title itself sounds both moral and judicial, as if he was not merely wise but authorized to interpret the right path. That makes the mystery especially charged. If we knew who he was, many other puzzles might shift into place. We might better understand the community's origins, its enemies, and its reason for withdrawing from wider religious life. Instead, the evidence gives fragments of conflict and loyalty without a portrait. Some people even wonder whether the title could refer to more than one leader across time. The uncertainty keeps the figure suspended between history and legend. He may have been central to his own world, yet almost invisible to ours. A rival figure is called the Wicked Priest in coded language. The title is unforgettable because it suggests bitter conflict hidden inside religious writing. This opponent appears as a powerful enemy who troubled the righteous community and may have persecuted its leader. Yet, like the teacher, he is not named directly. That has led to intense debate. Was he a Jerusalem high priest? A political ruler? A corrupt authority accused of betraying sacred duty? The coded label gives the text a charged atmosphere. It feels like a memory of conflict preserved by insiders who knew exactly who was meant. To modern readers, that missing name becomes the whole puzzle. Some believe the language was deliberately veiled for safety. Others think the community preferred symbolic titles because they saw events as part of a cosmic struggle. The figure matters because he represents more than one bad person. He embodies the idea that the official religious world may have been viewed as dangerously compromised by those who wrote the scrolls. The scrolls may preserve arguments between ancient Jewish factions. The collection becomes even more fascinating when it is viewed as evidence of disagreement rather than a single, unified tradition. The ancient Jewish world was not flat or simple. Groups debated authority, law, purity, calendars, priesthood, and the right way to prepare for God's future. The scrolls preserve that tension in a way that feels immediate. Some texts seem to separate the writers from leaders in Jerusalem. Others insist that certain interpretations are true, while rival practices are wrong. This is not dry theology. It is a record of people convinced that mistakes in worship could change the fate of a community. Some people see these disputes as the hidden background of later religious history. Others think they reveal suppressed branches of thought that almost disappeared. What matters is that the scrolls show belief under pressure. They give us a world where sacred ideas were contested with intensity and where disagreement could reshape an entire life. Some passages seem to predict betrayal inside a sacred community. The writings do not only look outward at enemies. At times, they suggest danger from within. That detail gives the scrolls a tense, almost dramatic quality. A community built on discipline and shared belief would have feared internal failure deeply. Betrayal could mean revealing teachings, weakening trust, or abandoning the path at the very moment history seemed to be approaching judgment. Some passages speak of falsehood, hypocrisy, and people who appear faithful but are not. This may reflect real disputes inside the group, or it may use spiritual language to describe moral danger. Either way, the effect is gripping. These people did not imagine themselves living in a peaceful retreat untouched by conflict. They believed they were surrounded by tests. Some people interpret the language as evidence of initiation secrets and hidden ranks. Others see a strict movement struggling to hold itself together. The human story beneath the theology is simple and timeless. Trust was fragile. The Thanksgiving hymns reveal a voice filled with danger and devotion. These hymns are among the most emotionally intense writings connected with the scrolls. They speak from the perspective of someone who feels rescued, chosen, and surrounded by threat. The voice often sounds deeply aware of human weakness, yet convinced that divine knowledge has entered his life. That combination makes the hymns feel unusually personal. They are not merely praising from a distance. They seem to come from someone who has survived opposition and believes his survival has meaning. Some readers connect them with the teacher of righteousness, although that remains debated. Others treat them as devotional compositions used by the wider community. Their power lies in how close they bring us to an ancient mind under pressure. This is not abstract belief. It is belief experienced as rescue from confusion. Some people hear a record of mystical awakening. Others hear the testimony of a persecuted leader. Both possibilities deepen the sense that these texts are alive. Ancient scribes sometimes corrected mistakes directly on the scrolls. The corrections are fascinating because they let us watch the writing process in real time. A scribe could add a missing letter, adjust a word, mark a problem, or fit a correction into the space available. These small interventions remind us that sacred manuscripts were produced by human hands, not by machines. The people copying them were careful, but they were not flawless. That makes the scrolls more interesting rather than less. Each correction becomes a tiny moment of concentration from 2,000 years ago. It also helps scholars understand how texts were transmitted. Some corrections bring a manuscript closer to another known version. Others suggest that the scribe or a later reader had access to a different reading. Some people find these marks thrilling because they show tradition being shaped at the level of ink. The ancient page becomes a workshop where memory, authority, and human attention met in the smallest possible space. DNA testing can match fragments by the animals that supplied parchment. This is where the ancient mystery meets modern science in a surprisingly dramatic way. Many scrolls were written on animal skin, which can preserve biological traces. By studying those traces, researchers can sometimes tell whether fragments came from the same animal or from different ones. That matters because pieces scattered across collections may look similar while belonging to separate manuscripts. Other pieces may have been wrongly divided for decades. DNA can offer a new kind of clue that handwriting alone cannot provide. It does not solve every question, but it can narrow the field and expose false connections. Some people love this part of the story because it feels almost like forensic work on a vanished library. The parchment itself becomes a witness. It remembers something the text no longer says. Beneath the ink, the material carries its own history, and that hidden history can help rebuild the ancient puzzle one skim at a time. Artificial intelligence may distinguish scribes who wrote almost identically. The handwriting on the scrolls has always been a major clue, but human eyes can struggle when trained scribes used similar styles. Newer computational methods can measure tiny patterns in letter shape, spacing, pressure, and movement. This allows researchers to ask whether one person copied an entire manuscript or whether multiple scribes worked in close coordination. The idea is fascinating because it pushes beyond what the eye casually sees. A scroll may look uniform, yet contain subtle changes that reveal a second hand. That could transform our understanding of how copying was organized. Was there a professional workshop? Did scribes share duties? Were manuscripts copied during intense periods of activity? Some people imagine secret schools of scribes preserving hidden knowledge. Others see ordinary craft made visible through extraordinary tools. Either way, artificial intelligence gives the scrolls a new kind of afterlife. The ancient hand is being studied by a machine that notices what humans miss. Multispectral imaging can uncover letters too faded for normal sight. This technique can make damaged fragments speak again by photographing them under different wavelengths of light. Ink and parchment respond differently across those wavelengths, which means writing that seems invisible may reappear on a screen. The result can feel uncanny. A fragment that looked blank may suddenly show strokes, words, or lines that had been buried beneath time. This matters because some of the most valuable evidence may survive only as faint traces. A recovered letter can identify a book. A recovered word can change a translation. A recovered line can connect two fragments that once seemed unrelated. Some people see this as proof that the scrolls still have secrets locked inside them. It also means the story is not finished. Discoveries may come not from a new expedition, but from re-examining old pieces with better tools. The darkness on a fragment may not be emptiness. It may simply be waiting for the right light. The scrolls survived because the desert climate was unusually dry. Moisture is the great enemy of ancient writing. In many places, leather and papyrus decay long before they can reach modern eyes. The area near the Dead Sea offered a rare combination of dryness, isolation, and shelter. Those conditions slowed destruction and gave the manuscripts a chance that they would not have had in a wetter climate. This does not make their survival ordinary. It makes it barely possible. The same landscape that seems harsh to human life helped protect fragile words. That irony is part of the fascination. A severe environment became an accidental archive. Some people see providence in that fact. Others see the astonishing luck of geography. The caves acted like storage chambers, and the dry air did what no human guard could do across centuries. It kept decay at bay. Without that climate, the scrolls might have disappeared completely, leaving only scattered references and unanswered questions in their place. Some caves were carefully searched long before modern archaeology arrived. The discovery story is not as simple as untouched caves waiting patiently for 20th century scholars. Some sites showed signs of earlier disturbance, which means people may have entered, removed material, or explored them at different times. That raises fascinating questions about what was seen and what vanished before official study began. Were ancient searchers looking for hidden valuables? Did later visitors find scrolls and fail to understand them? Were some manuscripts taken away and lost in private hands long before the famous discoveries? The possibility changes how we imagine the caves. They were not necessarily sealed vaults from antiquity to the modern age. They may have had episodes of forgotten contact. Some people wonder whether stories of hidden texts circulated locally for generations. Others think practical exploration explains the disturbances. Either way, archaeology arrived after a long and complicated history, and the caves may have surrendered only a portion of what they once contained. Looted fragments still complicate the story of what was found. When artifacts leave the ground without careful recording, they lose part of their identity. A fragment without a secure discovery context can still be ancient, but its story becomes harder to verify. This problem is especially serious with the Dead Sea Scrolls, because many pieces moved through markets before scholars could document them properly. A fragment might be said to come from a certain cave, but the claim may depend on memory, sale records, or trust. That uncertainty affects how texts are grouped, dated, and interpreted. It also opens the door to confusion and deception. Some people focus on the romance of lost pieces moving through hidden channels. Others see a warning about how easily heritage can be damaged by private trade. The scrolls are mysterious enough on their own. Looting adds a modern layer of uncertainty, where the question is not only what an ancient text says, but whether we truly know where it came from. Forgeries have haunted the modern trade in Dead Sea Scroll fragments. The fame of the scrolls created a market, and markets attract imitation. Once small fragments became highly desirable, modern forgers had a powerful incentive to produce pieces that looked ancient enough to convince buyers. This has made authentication a major part of the story. A fake fragment can borrow the language of Scripture, use old-looking material, and still mislead scholars if its origins are unclear. The problem is especially tricky because genuine fragments are often damaged, tiny, and incomplete. That means a convincing fake does not need to look perfect. It only needs to look plausible. Some people view the forgery scandals as evidence that hidden forces wanted to control the narrative. Others see a more familiar pattern of money, prestige, and wishful thinking. Either way, the existence of fakes has made experts more cautious. Every unproven piece must now be approached with a careful question. Is this a voice from antiquity or a modern mask? The Museum of the Bible admitted many fragments were modern fakes. This revelation shocked many people because the fragments had been presented as part of a world-famous manuscript tradition. Later examination found that the pieces in question did not stand up to scrutiny. Their surfaces, int behavior, and material clues pointed toward modern creation rather than ancient origin. The admission became a major cautionary tale. It showed that even wealthy institutions can be drawn into the excitement of possessing rare objects before the evidence is secure. For the public, It was a reminder that the Dead Sea Scrolls are surrounded not only by ancient mystery, but also by modern desire. People want to own a piece of the sacred past. That hunger can cloud judgment. Some people see the episode as a scandal of the artifact trade. Others think it proves how difficult authentication can be when pieces lack proper excavation history. The result is a deeper suspicion around every fragment that appears without a clear past. Genuine pieces can be difficult to prove without archaeological context. An ancient-looking fragment is not automatically trustworthy. Its material may be old, but the writing could be new. Its script may resemble a known style, but resemblance can be copied. Its claimed origin may sound convincing, yet claims can be shaped by sellers. This is why archaeological context is so important. When an object is found under controlled conditions, its location, layer, nearby materials, and handling history all help establish credibility. Without that context, experts must rely on scientific testing, handwriting analysis, ink study, and provenance records. Each method can help, but none is perfect alone. The uncertainty creates a strange situation. A real fragment may be doubted because its path is unclear. A fake may appear exciting because it tells people what they want to hear. Some people find that ambiguity fascinating. It means the modern story of the scrolls has its own hidden maze, where truth depends on evidence that may no longer exist. Scholars still debate whether Cave 12 once held stolen scrolls. The identification of another cave connected to the scrolls created excitement because it suggested the landscape might still have surprises. Inside, archaeologists found signs that seemed consistent with ancient manuscript storage, including pottery associated with scroll jars. Yet no intact scrolls were waiting there. This raised a provocative possibility. Perhaps the cave once held manuscripts, but they had been removed before proper excavation. That idea immediately stirred the imagination. Were ancient texts taken by looters in modern times? Did someone find them and sell them into unknown collections? Or was the evidence being overread? The debate matters because an empty cave can still change the map of the discovery. It suggests that the known scrolls may not represent the whole archive. Some people picture missing manuscripts hidden in private vaults. Others remain cautious and ask for stronger proof. The cave's power comes from absence. It may be most important because of what was not there. The scroll jars may have been made specially for storing manuscripts. The tall cylindrical jars found in connection with the manuscripts have attracted attention because their shape seems unusually well suited to holding rolled texts. If they were made for this purpose, then the hiding of the scrolls was not random. It involved planning, preparation, and a practical understanding of preservation. Such jars could protect against dust, animals, and handling damage. They also suggest that scroll storage may have been part of a broader habit rather than a single desperate act. Not everyone agrees on their exact function. Pottery types can be reused, and containers often served more than one purpose in the ancient world. Still, the association is hard to ignore. The jars make the act of concealment feel deliberate. Some people imagine a community packing sacred writings with ritual care. Others picture emergency storage during political danger. Either way, the containers remind us that survival often depends on ordinary objects doing extraordinary work. Some jars were discovered empty, leaving behind a silent mystery. An empty container can sometimes feel more haunting than a full one. When jars appear without their contents, they raise questions that cannot be answered by the pottery alone. Did a scroll decay and vanish completely? Was it removed by ancient hands before the cave was abandoned? Did modern searchers take the manuscript and leave the jar behind? Each possibility changes the story. A missing scroll might have contained a known text, a lost rulebook, or something that would have transformed the entire collection. This is why absence matters so much in the Dead Sea Scrolls story. The known manuscripts are extraordinary, but the missing ones may be just as important. Some people wonder whether certain controversial writings were removed first. Others think empty jars simply reflect the rough history of the caves. Still, each vacant vessel feels like a placeholder for a vanished voice. It says that the archive we have may not be the archive that once existed. Ancient linen wrappings suggest the scrolls were treated with care. The presence of wrapping material gives the manuscripts a more intimate story. These writings were not tossed into caves like ordinary rubbish. Some were rolled, covered, and placed in a way that suggests protection. Linen could help shield a manuscript from abrasion and dust. It also creates the impression that the scrolls were handled with respect. That detail matters because it speaks to intention. Whoever stored them understood their value. The wrappings bring ancient hands into focus. Someone prepared the text for darkness. Someone believed it should endure. Some people see this as evidence of sacred custody, almost like a burial for words meant to rise again. Others view it as sensible preservation during a dangerous period. Both readings add depth. The scrolls were not only copied, they were cared for after copy. The linen reminds us that manuscripts can have life stories of their own, from use to concealment to rediscovery. The Dead Sea itself helped create the conditions for survival. The surrounding region is one of the most unusual environments connected with any major manuscript discovery. The air is dry, the terrain is severe, and the nearby waters are famously dense with minerals. While the scrolls were not preserved by the water itself, the wider setting helped shape a protective zone. Few places combine remoteness, aridity, and natural shelter in quite the same way. That made the region both difficult for people and kind to fragile materials. The Dead Sea also carries symbolic weight because it sits at a dramatic low point on the Earth's surface. For some people, that makes the discovery feel almost staged by geography. Ancient words survived in a place associated with barrenness, salt, and silence. More cautious voices point to climate and chance. Yet even without exaggeration, the setting feels extraordinary. The landscape did not explain the scrolls, but it helped keep them waiting until the modern world was ready to notice. Some scrolls contain calendars that disagreed with the Jerusalem priesthood. Time itself became a point of conflict in these writings. The calendar found in several texts does not simply tell people when to celebrate. It suggests a whole way of seeing order, authority, and sacred rhythm. If the temple leadership followed one schedule while another group followed a different one, then festivals could fall on different days. That would make public worship feel wrong to those who believed they had the truest reckoning of time. Suddenly, a calendar is not a background detail. It becomes a challenge to power. Some people imagine this as one of the great hidden disputes behind the scrolls. Who had the right to decide when holiness arrived? The question sounds simple, but it reaches deep into identity. A community that rejects the official calendar may also be rejecting the officials themselves. In that sense, time was not neutral. It was a battlefield measured in days. A different calendar may have shaped the community's entire worldview. For the people behind these writings, the year may have felt like a sacred machine built with exact purpose. If time had been arranged by heaven, then following the correct pattern was not just practical. It was obedience. A different calendar would shape meals, festivals, work, study, and expectation. It could separate insiders from everyone else without a wall being built. Those who kept the right days would feel aligned with a higher order. Those who did not might seem out of step with creation itself. Some people find this idea electrifying because it suggests that the community was not merely disagreeing about dates. They may have believed they had recovered the hidden architecture of time. Others see a disciplined movement, using a consistent system to mark identity. Either way, the calendar becomes a clue to how deeply belief can organize life. It tells us how a group measured the world. The solar calendar gave festivals fixed days every single year. This system had a powerful appeal because it avoided the shifting festival pattern that comes with lunar observation. In a solar arrangement, sacred occasions could fall on the same day of the week each year. That created stability. It also gave the year a sense of design that may have felt divinely precise. For a community that valued order, such regularity would have been more than convenient. It would have confirmed that heaven itself was structured and knowable. Some people see this as a major key to the mindset behind the scrolls. The calendar was not just counting time. It was revealing a hidden pattern. Imagine believing that the world had a correct rhythm and that most people around you had lost it. That belief could make ordinary religious life feel corrupted. It could also make separation seem necessary. In that world, the right date was a sign of truth. Lunar traditions may have looked suspicious to the Qumran group. A calendar based on the moon depends on observation, adjustment, and the judgment of authorities. To a group that preferred fixed sacred order, that could feel uncertain or even compromised. If the Qumran community distrusted the Jerusalem priesthood, then a calendar controlled by public proclamation would have seemed especially vulnerable. A wrong announcement could shift a holy day. A corrupt authority could mislead the people. That is why the calendar question carried so much emotional force. It was about trust. Who do you trust to tell you when the sacred year begins? Some people believe this disagreement points to a deeper rebellion against official religion. Others think it reflects technical debate turned intense by the politics of the age. Either way, the suspicion makes the scrolls feel alive with conflict. Even the moon could become part of a larger argument about truth, power, and hidden knowledge. The scrolls reveal ancient arguments over time itself. It is easy to think of time as something everyone shares, but these texts show how contested it could become. When communities disagree over sacred time, they are really disagreeing over how reality is ordered. One group may celebrate while another waits. One priest may declare a feast while another believes the day is wrong. That kind of division would cut through families, rituals, and public life. The scrolls let us glimpse an ancient world where timekeeping could be an act of loyalty. Some people are drawn to this because it sounds like a lost code beneath history. If the wrong calendar was followed, then perhaps entire generations worshipped out of rhythm. More cautious readers see a fierce debate among religious groups trying to live faithfully. Both interpretations show why the issue matters. The question was not merely when something happened. The question was whether human life could line up with a divine design. Copies of biblical books show that sacred text was still developing. The scrolls give us a rare look at Scripture before later boundaries became fully settled. Some copies are extremely close to familiar forms, while others show differences that remind us of a living process. A word may shift. A phrase may expand. A passage may preserve a reading known from another ancient tradition. These variations do not make the texts less important. They make the history behind them more visible. We can see scribes working within reverence, but also within a world where transmission had not become completely uniform. Some people find this thrilling because it suggests that certain versions were filtered out over time. Others see it as the normal path by which sacred literature moved towards stability. The scrolls are powerful because they catch the process while it is still happening. They reveal a sacred past that was not frozen, but active, careful, and full of choices. The Book of Esther is strangely absent from the Qumran caves. The absence stands out because many other biblical writings are represented in the discoveries. Esther is a dramatic story of danger, identity, and survival, yet no clear copy has been found among the scrolls. That silence has inspired many explanations. Perhaps the community did not value the book. Perhaps a copy once existed and was lost before discovery. Perhaps the festival connected with Esther did not fit the group's calendar or theology. The book also never directly names God, which may have made it feel unusual to certain ancient readers. Some people wonder whether its absence points to a deliberate rejection by the scroll keepers. Others caution that archaeology is incomplete and missing evidence can mislead us. Still, the gap is fascinating. A library can speak through what it preserves, but it can also speak through what it lacks. In this case, the missing book becomes part of the mystery. Psalms appear with extra compositions not found in many Bibles. The Psalms material from the scrolls is especially intriguing because it does not always match the later familiar collection exactly. Some manuscripts include additional songs, different arrangements, and compositions associated with figures such as David in expanded ways. That suggests ancient worship and sacred poetry were more fluid than many people assume. The book we know may have existed alongside related collections with their own shape and purpose. This does not reduce the power of the Psalms. It widens the world around them. Some people see these extra compositions as echoes of suppressed devotional traditions. Others view them as evidence that sacred songbooks developed through use, memory, and selection. Either way, the discoveries remind us that ancient communities did not experience Scripture only as a finished table of contents. They sang, copied, adapted, and treasured words that carried spiritual weight. The scrolls let us hear a larger choir than the one later tradition preserved. The scrolls preserve Jubilees as an important ancient religious text. Jubilees retells early biblical history with striking confidence and a strong concern for sacred time. It organizes the past into measured periods and presents ancient events as part of a precise divine plan. Its presence among the scrolls shows that it mattered deeply to at least some ancient readers. This is fascinating because Jubilees does not occupy the same place in every later tradition. Yet at Qumran, it appears to have carried real authority. The book reinforces ideas about law, angels, festivals, and the structure of history. Some people see it as a key to the hidden worldview behind the scrolls. Others treat it as an influential interpretive work from the Second Temple period. Either way, it helps explain why the community may have cared so much about calendars and obedience. Jubilees offers a world where nothing is random. Time is counted, history is arranged, and human life is expected to follow the pattern. Tobit appears in several copies and multiple ancient languages. The presence of Tobit is important because it shows the collection included beloved stories beyond the later Hebrew Bible familiar to many readers. Tobit contains family loyalty, travel, healing, hidden guidance, and angelic involvement. Finding it in both Aramaic and Hebrew fragments suggests it circulated in more than one form and reached readers across linguistic boundaries. That makes it feel like a story with strong popular life. It was not merely copied once and forgotten. It appears to have been valued enough to preserve repeatedly. Some people are drawn to Tobit because it presents a world where divine help can arrive through disguised companionship. Others focus on its evidence for how diverse Jewish literature was before later canons became fixed. Its place among the scrolls broadens the whole discovery. We are not only seeing laws and prophecies, we are seeing stories that shaped imagination, comforted families, and carried ideas about unseen protection. The Genesis Apocryphon retells familiar ancestors with surprising new details. This manuscript shows how ancient readers could revisit well-known figures and and draw out new dimensions. Instead of simply copying the familiar Genesis narrative, it expands scenes and gives added texture to the lives of figures such as Noah and Abraham. The result feels like stepping into a side chamber beside a story many people thought they already knew. Details about beauty, dreams, divine warning, and family identity create a richer and sometimes stranger atmosphere. Some people see texts like this as evidence that older traditions once surrounded the biblical account, only to survive in scattered pieces. Others view them as creative interpretation that helped communities imagine Scripture more vividly. Either way, the manuscript proves that ancient engagement with sacred stories was not passive. Readers wanted to know what happened between the lines. They asked questions, filled gaps, and preserved versions that make the familiar feel newly mysterious. Some writings expand Noah's story far beyond the familiar version. Noah becomes more than the builder of an ark in the wider world of ancient interpretation. In scroll-related traditions, he can appear as a figure surrounded by cosmic concern, strange ancestry questions, divine messages, and the burden of preserving life through judgment. That expanded interest is fascinating because it suggests ancient readers saw the flood story as a doorway into bigger mysteries. What did Noah know? How was he chosen? What secrets survived with him into the renewed world? Some people imagine these traditions preserving fragments of a much older memory about catastrophe and hidden wisdom. Others see storytellers exploring the meaning of righteousness in a world believed to be collapsing. The appeal is easy to understand. Noah stands at a reset point in human history. If a community expected its own world to face judgment, then Noah's story would feel intensely relevant. He was not only ancient, he was a pattern. Giants appear in fragments connected to the mysterious Watcher tradition. The giant traditions are among the most eye-catching pieces of the scroll's wider world. These fragments connect with stories about beings born from forbidden unions between heavenly watchers and human women. The result is a strange, ancient drama of knowledge, corruption, violence, and judgment. Later readers often know only a brief version from Genesis, but related texts expand the idea into something much larger. The giants are not just monsters. They are signs that the boundary between heaven and earth has been broken. Some people see this as mythic language for ancient tyrants or forbidden power. Others treat it as a memory of real beings that official history tried to reduce. The fragments are incomplete, which makes them even more compelling. They give us enough to feel the scale of the story, but not enough to close it. The missing parts leave the imagination leaning toward the dark edge of antiquity. The Watcher's tradition links human history with rebellious heavenly beings. In this tradition, the troubles of the world do not begin only with human weakness. They involve forbidden knowledge brought from above and misused below. The Watchers teach arts that change civilization, but their gifts become dangerous because they arrive outside the proper order. That idea is gripping because it makes ancient history feel like the aftermath of a cosmic breach. Human culture becomes mixed with knowledge that should not have arrived in that way. Some people connect this to alternative theories about lost teachers, advanced beings, or hidden origins of technology. Traditional scholars usually explain it as apocalyptic myth and moral warning. Yet the power of the tradition remains the same. It asks whether civilization itself might carry a wound from the beginning. The scrolls preserve fragments of that worldview, and those fragments refuse to feel small. They suggest that, for some ancient readers, earthly history was entangled with choices made beyond the human realm. Melchizedek appears as a powerful heavenly deliverer in one text. Melchizedek is already a mysterious figure because he enters Genesis briefly as a priestly king and then vanishes. In one Qumran text, the figure becomes far more dramatic. He appears connected with liberation, judgment, and divine authority in a way that has fascinated readers for decades. This is not the small cameo many people remember. It is a transformed figure with a role that seems almost angelic or heavenly. Some people see this as evidence that ancient Jews imagined exalted deliverers in ways that later became important for other religious ideas. Others caution that the text is fragmentary and difficult to interpret fully. Still, its impact is undeniable. It shows how a barely explained biblical character could grow into a figure of enormous spiritual force. That raises a thrilling possibility. Perhaps the margins of Scripture held seeds that later traditions would unfold in surprising directions. This ancient Melchizedek fragment feels startlingly close to later ideas. The fascination comes from the way the text seems to combine judgment, release, and heavenly authority around one mysterious figure. For readers familiar with later religious language, the resemblance can feel unexpectedly strong. It is not that the fragment says everything later traditions would say. It does not. But it shows that some concepts were already circulating in the air before later movements took shape. A heavenly agent could announce freedom. A divine timetable could reach its climax. A figure from ancient scripture could return with expanded meaning. Some people find this electrifying because it suggests hidden continuity between worlds that are often kept separate. Others argue that it simply reflects shared Jewish ideas from the period. Either way, the fragment makes history feel more connected and less predictable. It reminds us that ideas do not appear from nowhere. They gather force, change form, and sometimes re-emerge with astonishing power. The community expected divine judgment to arrive with terrifying certainty. This expectation runs through many writings like a current beneath the surface. The future was not imagined as vague improvement. It was pictured as a decisive moment when truth would be exposed and wrongdoing would be answered. That belief gave urgency to ordinary life. Rules mattered because judgment was coming. Loyalty mattered because the world was being sorted. Knowledge mattered because confusion could lead people into disaster. Some people are drawn to this intensity because it feels like a hidden community living inside a countdown. They may not have known the exact hour, but they believed the direction of history was fixed. Others see this as part of the wider apocalyptic mood of the age, shaped by foreign rule and religious conflict. The emotional power remains clear. These were not casual speculations about the future. They were convictions strong enough to organize a life, divide communities, and preserve writings in the hope that truth would survive. Some scrolls divide humanity into spirits of truth and deceit. This idea gives the writings a stark and gripping psychology. People are not presented as merely informed or uninformed. They are influenced by opposing spiritual forces that shape perception, behavior, and destiny. The language suggests that truth is more than correct information. It is a realm of allegiance. Deceit is not only a mistake. It is a power that can govern a life. Some people hear in this a map of hidden influence. As though the world is divided by forces most people never notice. Scholars often connect it with ancient dualistic thinking, where moral conflict is described in cosmic terms. The effect is still dramatic. Every choice becomes part of something larger. Every person stands within a struggle that began before them and extends beyond them. The scrolls do not simply ask what people believe. They ask what spirit moves beneath belief, and that question remains unsettling. Ritual purity shaped everyday life in ways still debated. Purity was not merely a private feeling or a simple matter of cleanliness. It involved bodies, food, space, time, and access to sacred activity. At Qumran, purity concerns may have helped structure the entire settlement. Archaeological features and written rules suggest that washing, separation, and careful conduct mattered intensely. Yet debate continues over how these practices worked and what they meant. Were they preparing people for worship? Were they rejecting the practices of the Jerusalem temple? Were they creating an alternative holy community in the desert? Some people imagine a disciplined group trying to make daily life into a sacred zone. Others see a broader pattern of Jewish law, intensified under sectarian pressure. The fascinating part is how concrete it becomes. Belief was not only spoken, it was performed through routine. A person's hands, meals, clothing, and movements could all become part of the search for holiness. Archaeologists found stepped pools that may have served ritual washing. These pools are among the most visible clues at Qumran. Their steps lead downward into plastered basins, and many have been interpreted as installations for immersion. If that interpretation is correct, then water played a central role in the life of the settlement. This is striking because the region is dry, and managing water there required effort. A community that invested in such structures may have cared deeply about repeated purification. The pools turn belief into architecture. They show that religious ideas can shape stone, plaster, and engineering. Some people see them as evidence that Qumran was a sacred community set apart from the wider world. Others caution that water installations can have practical uses as well. The debate continues, but the visual impression remains strong. In a place where water was precious, these basins suggest that cleansing was not a small concern. It may have stood near the center of communal life. Qumran's water system seems unusually complex for such a harsh place. The settlement managed runoff through channels, cisterns, and pools in a landscape where water could not be taken for granted. That complexity tells us something important about the people who lived or worked there. They planned for scarcity. They shaped the site around survival and possibly ritual need. Sudden seasonal flows had to be caught, directed, stored, and used wisely. This required knowledge of the terrain and a willingness to invest serious labor. Some people see the system as evidence of a community with a long-term purpose. Others think it could support industrial activities such as pottery production. The same channels can serve more than one theory, which is why they remain interesting. Water is practical, but at Qumran, it may also have been symbolic. The site seems to say that life in the desert required discipline. Whether for washing, drinking, or work, water had to be captured before it disappeared. The settlement's dining room may reveal disciplined communal meals. One large room at Qumran has often been interpreted as a gathering space for shared meals. Nearby pottery finds have supported the idea that eating together may have been highly organized. This fits with rule texts that describe ranked participation and controlled access to communal food. If the interpretation is right, then a meal was not casual. It was a ceremony of belonging. Who entered, where they sat, and when they ate could reflect spiritual status. That makes the room fascinating because it turns ordinary nourishment into evidence of social structure. Some people picture a brotherhood eating in silence before sacred instruction. Others prefer a less dramatic reading and see a communal facility with practical uses. Even so, the possibility is compelling. A dining space can reveal how a group understood itself. At Qumran, the table may have been a place where discipline became visible and where membership was reinforced every day. Inkwells found at Qumran support the idea of manuscript copying. Small objects can carry large implications, and the inkwells are a perfect example. Their presence at the site has been used to argue that writing or copying took place there. That idea strengthens the image of Qumran as a center where scribes worked near the caves that later held the manuscripts. It is easy to see why the possibility captures the imagination. A room, an inkwell, a prepared skin, and a careful hand together form a vivid scene. Yet the evidence must be handled with care. Inkwells prove writing activity, but they do not automatically prove a large scriptorium or explain the origin of every scroll. Still, they matter because they place literacy in the settlement. Some people imagine trained scribes preserving secret teachings under strict supervision. Others see administrators, copyists, or residents using ink for more ordinary purposes. The mystery lies in scale. Were these tools part of a daily writing culture or a larger mission? Skeptics argue the inkwells do not prove a full scriptorium. This counterpoint matters because it keeps the Qumran story from becoming too simple. Finding writing tools at a site is important, but it does not settle every question. People used ink for accounts, letters, labels, and many ordinary tasks. A few inkwells do not necessarily mean that hundreds of manuscripts were copied in that location. This caution has pushed researchers to examine the evidence more carefully. Were there enough writing tools? Is there a clear room designed for copying? Do the manuscript hands suggest local production or a broader network? Some people feel the skepticism weakens the romantic picture of desert scribes. Others find it even more exciting because it opens new possibilities. Maybe Qumran was connected to a larger system. Maybe scrolls arrived from several places. Maybe the site was one piece of a wider hidden operation. The inkwells remain important, but they are clues rather than a final verdict. The nearby cemetery raises questions about who lived at Qumran. Burial grounds can reveal what buildings cannot. The cemetery near Qumran has drawn attention because it may help identify the population connected with the site. The arrangement of graves, the remains studied, and the overall pattern have all been brought into debates about whether the settlement housed a celibate male group, families, workers, or a mixed community over time. These questions matter because the answer changes how the scrolls are imagined. A strict religious brotherhood creates one picture. A broader settlement creates another. Some people see the cemetery as one of the most human pieces of evidence at Qumran. It reminds us that theories are built around lives that ended there. Others warn that old excavations and limited data make certainty difficult. The dead do not speak directly, but their resting places shape the argument. They stand near the scrolls like witnesses whose testimony has to be interpreted with care. Some graves complicate the idea of an all-male community. The traditional picture of Qumran often emphasized a male sect living apart from ordinary family life. Yet some burial evidence has raised questions about whether that image is complete. Reports of women and possibly children in or near the cemetery have pushed researchers to reconsider the social reality of the site. Were they residents? Visitors? Later burials unrelated to the original community? Each possibility matters. If families were present, the settlement may have been more complex than the classic Essene model suggests. If they were not part of the main occupation, then the older theory may still hold. Some people find this debate fascinating because it shows how one bone, one grave, or one reclassification can shift an entire story. It also reminds us not to force ancient life into a neat outline. Qumran may have changed over time. Its population may not have matched the strict picture that later imagination created. Coins help date Qumran's occupation and sudden disruption. Coins are small, but they can anchor history with surprising force. When found in archaeological layers, they help establish when people used a site and when activity may have stopped. At Qumran, coins have contributed to the timeline of settlement, destruction, and possible reoccupation. They connect the ruins to rulers, political changes, and the wider economy of the region. Unlike a mysterious text, a coin often carries a more public marker of time. That makes it a useful counterweight to speculation. Yet coins also raise questions. They can remain in circulation for years. They can move through trade. They can be lost long after being minted. Some people see the coin evidence as support for a dramatic break during the Roman period. Others treat it as one part of a complicated timeline. The fascination is that a tiny object dropped from someone's hand can help date the final chapters of a hidden library. Earthquake damage may have interrupted life at the settlement. The region around the Dead Sea is seismically active, and evidence at Qumran has been interpreted by many as showing earthquake damage. If a major quake struck the settlement, it may have changed daily life in an instant. Walls could crack. Water systems could fail. Occupation could pause or shift. This gives the site a second kind of drama beyond war and religious conflict. Nature itself may have disrupted the community before the final crisis of the Roman period. Some people imagine the earthquake as a warning sign interpreted through apocalyptic belief. Others see it as a practical disaster that forced repair, abandonment, or reorganization. The idea is compelling because the people behind the scrolls already read history as meaningful. If the ground moved beneath them, they may not have experienced it as random. To us, the damage is archaeological evidence. To them, it may have felt like the world confirming their expectations. Roman forces likely reached Qumran during the First Jewish Revolt. The First Jewish Revolt brought enormous upheaval to the region, and Qumran appears to have been caught in that wider storm. Roman military movement through the area helps explain why a settlement could be damaged or abandoned near the end of its occupation. It also gives urgency to the hiding of manuscripts in nearby caves. If troops approached, texts would need to be concealed quickly or carried away. The idea links the scrolls to one of the most consequential conflicts in ancient Jewish history. Some people see the Roman arrival as the moment the community's world collapsed. Others argue that the manuscripts may have already been hidden before direct danger reached the site. Either way, the revolt provides the historical pressure that makes the whole story feel plausible. The scrolls did not survive in a peaceful vacuum. They came through an age when armies moved, cities fell, and communities vanished. The scrolls may have been hidden in haste before catastrophe. There is a human urgency behind this possibility that is hard to ignore. Imagine people realizing that danger is close and choosing what must be protected. They cannot save everything. They choose scrolls. They carry them into caves, seal them as best they can, and perhaps believe they will return. That return may never have happened. This scenario explains why manuscripts ended up in remote places and why some were preserved while others were broken or scattered. It also gives the discovery its emotional force. The scrolls may be the aftermath of interrupted plans. Some people imagine a carefully organized rescue mission. Others picture desperate concealment under pressure. The truth may include both preparation and panic. What makes the idea unforgettable is the silence after the act. Whoever hid the writings left no clear note, no signed explanation, and no final message. Only the scrolls remained, waiting for a future they could not have imagined. Cave 11 yielded the longest and most ambitious scroll. This cave gave the story one of its most commanding manuscripts. The temple scroll is enormous by the standards of the collection, and its scale alone makes it feel different from a small devotional text or broken fragment. It presents a sweeping vision of sacred life with unusual confidence, as though the writer is not merely commenting, but revealing an ideal order. That ambition has made the manuscript one of the most discussed objects from the Dead Sea discoveries. It seems to reach beyond ordinary interpretation and claim a larger authority over worship, purity, and sacred space. Some people see it as evidence of a hidden blueprint preserved outside the official center of power. Others believe it reflects intense legal imagination during a time of religious disagreement. Either way, Cave 11 did not simply add another manuscript. It delivered a statement so bold that it forces readers to ask who had the confidence to write it. The Temple Scroll rewrites sacred law with commanding confidence. The striking thing about this manuscript is its voice. It does not feel hesitant. It arranges laws and instructions in a way that can sound like direct revelation, which has led many readers to wonder what authority its writer believed he possessed. The text touches on matters that would have shaped public worship, communal boundaries, and the imagined holiness of the land. That makes it more than a private meditation. It is a full religious program on parchment. Some people believe it preserves a rival vision that challenged the leadership in Jerusalem. Others see it as a learned expansion of earlier tradition, created by someone trying to make sacred law perfectly coherent. The effect is still dramatic. The manuscript seems to stand apart from ordinary commentary. It speaks as though a more exact version of divine order had been recovered, and that confidence is what gives it such lasting power. Some scholars see the Temple Scroll as a rival Torah. That interpretation is explosive because it suggests the text may not have been viewed as merely helpful commentary. It may have functioned as an authoritative version of instruction for a particular community. If so, then the manuscript represents something far more daring than a legal expansion. It becomes a claim that sacred teaching could be presented in a new arrangement with commanding force. This raises huge questions. Who was allowed to shape law in that way? Could a community outside the temple establishment believe it possessed a purer revelation? Some people imagine a suppressed sacred text that nearly disappeared from history. More cautious voices describe it as a sectarian legal composition shaped by existing scripture. Yet the mystery remains. The manuscript's tone is unusually powerful. It does not simply ask to be considered. It seems to expect obedience. That is why the idea of a rival Torah continues to attract attention. Others view it as an ideal plan rather than rebellion. A less confrontational reading sees the manuscript as a vision of perfect order rather than a direct attempt to replace existing authority. In this view, the writer may have been imagining how sacred life should look if everything matched divine intention. That makes the text ambitious, but not necessarily revolutionary in a political sense. It could be a blueprint for holiness, a dream of corrected worship, or a legal meditation taken to its highest form. This interpretation matters because it softens the image of a group plotting against the temple. Instead, we may be seeing people who believed the world had fallen short of a heavenly standard. Some people still hear rebellion in the confidence of the text. Others hear longing. Both possibilities are compelling. The manuscript may not fit neatly into one category. It can feel like law, hope, protest, and imagination, all pressing toward a sacred future. The copper scroll lists locations, measurements, and hidden deposits. The entries in this manuscript are strangely practical. They speak of places, quantities, and concealed valuables with the clipped confidence of a record. That is why it has always stood apart from the more devotional and legal writings. It feels like a document meant to guide someone who already knew the landscape and its coded references. Yet those references are difficult to identify with certainty today. A location that was obvious to an ancient reader may now be lost beneath changed terrain, ruined structures, or vanished place names. The measurements make the mystery sharper because they give the impression of precision without giving modern searchers enough certainty. Some people believe the scroll is a real inventory of hidden wealth. Others suspect a symbolic or legendary text. Its power lies in how stubbornly concrete it sounds. It does not feel like a dream. It feels like instructions from someone who knew where something was buried. Its treasure entries sound practical enough to tempt modern searchers. The temptation comes from the way the manuscript speaks. It does not simply say that treasure exists somewhere beyond reach. It gives directions, quantities, and hints that seem almost usable. That makes the reader feel as if the next clue might solve everything. Over the years, this has encouraged speculation about lost temple wealth, hidden offerings, and caches placed beyond Roman reach. The problem is that ancient geography can be slippery. A marker may no longer exist. A name may refer to a place now unknown. A measurement may depend on a system or starting point we cannot reconstruct. Some people keep believing the treasure is real because the text sounds too specific to be fantasy. Others think specificity can exist inside symbolic writing as well. That uncertainty is exactly why the scroll remains so magnetic. It gives the mind enough structure to begin searching, but not enough certainty to stop wondering. Nobody has confirmed a single treasure from the copper scroll. This is the fact that keeps the mystery honest. For all its tantalizing detail, no discovery has been firmly matched to the listed deposits. That absence has not ended fascination. In some ways, it has strengthened it. A confirmed find might have solved part of the puzzle and narrowed the possibilities. Instead, every entry remained suspended between reality and legend. Perhaps the treasure was found in antiquity. Perhaps it was moved before anyone followed the directions. Perhaps the places have been misidentified. Perhaps the entire document describes an ideal or hidden tradition rather than recoverable goods. Some people see the lack of evidence as proof that searchers have looked in the wrong way. Others see it as a warning against taking the list too literally. The scroll's silence after so many attempts is powerful. It keeps its secret intact, and that secret remains one of the most irresistible puzzles in the entire collection. The metal scroll had to be cut open to be read. By the time modern experts examined it, the object was too corroded and fragile to unroll safely. The only way to access the text was to slice it into sections, which turned reading into an act of controlled destruction. That detail gives the manuscript an almost suspenseful modern chapter. To reveal the message, people had to risk damaging the very thing they wanted to preserve. The operation required technical skill, patience, and acceptance that there was no perfect choice. The result was extraordinary. A text locked inside metal for centuries could finally be studied. Yet the method also reminds us how physical these mysteries are. Ancient knowledge does not arrive as a clean idea. It arrives cracked, fused, stained, and resistant. Some people find symbolism in the process. A secret about hidden deposits had itself become hidden inside a sealed object. To read the treasure list, modern hands had to break the container of the message. Its language differs from many other writings found at Qumran. The copper scroll does not sound like a typical religious manuscript from the caves. Its vocabulary, style, and practical tone have made it feel almost foreign inside the collection. This difference has encouraged theories that it came from another setting, perhaps connected with temple administration or some separate group preserving records of wealth. The language is one reason the document resists easy classification. It is not a hymn. It is not a rule book. It is not a commentary on Scripture. It reads like a functional list from a world we can only partly reconstruct. Some people believe that unusual language strengthens the case for a real inventory. Others think it may point to a special genre we no longer understand. Either way, the difference matters. It suggests that the caves gathered more than one kind of ancient voice. Among prayers and laws, there was also a text that sounded like a locked account. Some believe the copper scroll points toward temple treasure. This theory has captured imaginations because it connects the scroll to one of the greatest losses of the ancient world. When Jerusalem faced destruction, precious objects associated with sacred worship may have been hidden, seized, melted, or carried away. The Copper Scroll's list of deposits has therefore been linked by some people to valuables removed before catastrophe. The idea is dramatic because it turns the manuscript into a survival map for a vanished treasury. Yet the connection remains debated. The text does not provide a simple statement that solves the matter. It gives locations and quantities without the historical explanation we most want. Some people believe the secrecy was deliberate because the wrong reader could become a thief. Others argue the treasure may have belonged to another source entirely. The attraction of the temple theory is understandable. It places the scroll at the center of a crisis where faith, wealth, and survival met. Others suspect it records legend, coded memory, or ritual fantasy. Not everyone accepts the treasure list as a straightforward inventory. The quantities can seem enormous, and the directions can feel too obscure for modern certainty. That has led some readers to wonder whether the text preserves a symbolic memory of sacred wealth rather than a practical map. It might encode longing for a lost temple world. It might transform religious hope into the language of hidden deposits. It might even belong to a ritual imagination where treasure represents divine restoration. Some people resist this explanation because the entries sound so specific. Others find the symbolic reading more persuasive because no treasure has been verified. The most fascinating possibility is that the truth may not fit either extreme. A real tradition of hidden valuables could have been reshaped by memory until it became something larger than a ledger. The scroll may be practical, legendary, and spiritual at once, which is why it refuses to settle. The scrolls contain protective texts that may border on magic. Among the writings are compositions that seem concerned with protection from harmful forces. These texts open a window into a world where spiritual danger was not abstract. People believed unseen powers could threaten the body, the mind, and the community. Prayers, formulas, and sacred words may have functioned as defenses. For modern listeners, this is one of the most fascinating parts of the collection because it blurs categories. Is this religion? Is it healing practice? Is it magic? The ancient world did not always divide those ideas the way we do. Some people see these texts as evidence that the scroll keepers possessed secret techniques for guarding themselves. Others described them as part of a broader Jewish tradition of protection and blessing. Either way, they reveal a practical spiritual life. The people behind the scrolls did not only debate law and copy scripture. They also worried about invisible threats close enough to require words of defense. Ancient tefillin found near Qumran held tiny scriptural passages. These small devotional objects bring the scrolls into the scale of the human body. Tefillin contained miniature scriptural texts and were worn in connection with prayer and obedience. Finding examples near Qumran shows that sacred writing was not only stored in caves or copied onto large scrolls. It could be folded into tiny compartments and carried close to a person's skin. That detail is quietly astonishing. The same reverence that preserved large manuscripts also shaped intimate daily practice. The tiny script required remarkable skill, and the selection of passages can reveal how ancient communities understood commandment and memory. Some people are drawn to the idea that these objects carried protective force as well as devotional meaning. Others focus on their place in early Jewish practice. Either way, they show that scripture could be worn, not just read. The written word became something a person carried into the day as a sign of allegiance. Some tefillin texts differ from later rabbinic practice. The differences are important because they show ancient religious practice before every later standard had become fixed. The passages included, their order, and the way the tiny texts were prepared do not always match what became familiar in later tradition. That does not make them wrong in their own time. It shows that practice was still varied. Communities could share a broad command while applying it in distinct ways. For the history of religion, that is fascinating. A small object becomes evidence that the past held more diversity than later memory sometimes suggests. Some people see these differences as traces of paths that were eventually narrowed or forgotten. Others view them as normal variation in an evolving tradition. The power lies in the scale of the evidence. A tiny folded text can challenge a large assumption. It tells us that even deeply personal acts of devotion had a history, and that history was not always uniform. The scrolls show that Judaism was more diverse than expected. This is one of the great lessons of the discoveries. The ancient Jewish world was not a single voice speaking in perfect agreement. It included competing interpretations, different calendars, varied textual traditions, intense legal debates, and bold apocalyptic hopes. The scrolls make that diversity impossible to ignore. They show people wrestling with how to live faithfully under pressure. They also reveal that ideas later treated as marginal could once be central to certain groups. Some people find this thrilling because it suggests that official history preserved only part of the ancient conversation. Others see it as a reminder that religious traditions often develop through argument and selection. The scrolls do not flatten Judaism. They enrich it. They show a living landscape of conviction, conflict, and creativity. That makes the collection far more than a set of old manuscripts. It becomes evidence of a world in motion. Early Christians did not write the scrolls, but echoes feel close. The scrolls predate or overlap the world in which Christianity emerged, which makes their similarities especially intriguing. Certain themes feel familiar to readers of the New Testament. There is expectation of judgment, language of light and darkness, concern with purity, and the hope of divine intervention. These echoes do not prove that Christians produced the manuscripts. They do something more historically interesting. They show that early Christian ideas arose in a wider Jewish environment, already charged with apocalyptic expectation and scriptural interpretation. Some people imagine hidden connections between Qumran and the first followers of Jesus. Others caution that shared language does not require direct contact. The fascination lies in proximity. The scrolls let us hear the background music of an age. They make later religious developments feel less isolated and more connected to a larger atmosphere of longing, conflict, and expectation that filled the region before everything changed. John the Baptist has been linked to Qumran by speculation. The connection is tempting because John appears in the wilderness, practices baptism, calls for repentance, and speaks with urgency about coming judgment. Those features can sound close to the world suggested by some scrolls and by the Qumran settlement. It is easy to imagine him knowing of the community, passing near it, or being influenced by similar ideas. Yet there is no firm evidence that he lived there or belonged to the group. The link remains a possibility shaped by atmosphere rather than proof. Some people enjoy the theory because it places a famous biblical figure near one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Others point out that wilderness preaching and purification practices were not exclusive to Qumran. The careful answer is that John and the scrolls seem to share the same charged religious landscape. Whether their paths actually crossed remains unknown, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the speculation alive. Jesus is never named, yet the scrolls reshape his world. This absence matters because it corrects one of the more dramatic misunderstandings. The Dead Sea Scrolls do not contain a hidden biography of Jesus, nor do they directly reveal secret episodes from his life. Their importance is different and, in many ways, deeper. They show the Jewish world in which his movement began with far greater texture. Ideas about scripture, purity, judgment, community, angels, and the end of the age were already being debated intensely. That means the scrolls help us understand the atmosphere around the earliest Christian message. Some people still search the fragments for coded references or suppressed clues. Others focus on the historical background the manuscripts provide. Both impulses show how powerful the discovery has become. Even without naming Jesus, the scrolls change how we imagine the world around him. They reveal that his time was crowded with expectation, conflict, and hopes that history was about to turn. The scrolls illuminate the atmosphere behind apocalyptic preaching. Apocalyptic preaching did not arise in an empty world. The scrolls show a setting where many people believed history was moving toward a decisive divine act. That belief could shape language, ethics, politics, and the sense of urgency carried by public teachers. When later readers encounter warnings of judgment or promises of a transformed age, the scrolls help explain why such messages carried power. They reveal a culture where hidden meanings in Scripture mattered intensely, and where present suffering could be interpreted as part of a larger plan. Some people see this as evidence of secret countdowns and lost prophetic systems. Others see a community making sense of foreign rule and internal conflict. Either way, the scrolls add depth to the world behind fiery preaching. They show why listeners might have felt that the future was pressing close. The end was not an abstract doctrine. It was an expectation that could organize a life. Some phrases sound familiar to readers of the New Testament. The resemblance can be startling. Expressions about light, darkness, righteousness, works, spirit, and covenant sometimes seem to belong to a shared religious vocabulary. This does not mean one text simply copied another. It means the scrolls, and later Christian writings, drew from overlapping worlds of thought. That shared language matters because it reveals how ideas traveled before they became separated into later categories. A phrase that feels distinctively Christian to modern ears may have roots in wider Jewish usage. This can be surprising, but it is also enriching. It places the New Testament back into a complex landscape of debate and expectation. Some people wonder whether the similarities point to direct contact between communities. Others see them as evidence of common scriptural traditions and shared concerns. The most fascinating part is how close the atmosphere can feel. Across different writings, we hear people searching for truth in an age that felt spiritually charged. The Sons of Light became one of the scroll's most famous images. This phrase has captured public imagination because it feels simple, dramatic, and loaded with meaning. It names a community not by geography or politics, but by cosmic identity. To call oneself aligned with light is to claim a place in the structure of reality. The opposing side becomes more than a rival group. It becomes darkness itself. That kind of language is powerful because it turns ordinary conflict into a sacred drama. Some people see in the phrase a sign of secret initiates who believed they had awakened to hidden truth. Scholars usually place it within apocalyptic dualism and the community's self-understanding. Both readings recognize the force of the image. It tells us how the group saw itself. They were not simply residents near the Dead Sea. They believed they stood on one side of a universal division, and that belief could make every choice feel immense. Community rules demanded secrecy from people outside the group. Secrecy is one of the details that makes the scrolls feel especially intriguing. Certain teachings and interpretations appear to have been guarded from outsiders. That suggests the community believed knowledge could be dangerous in the wrong hands or profaned by those who lacked commitment. Secretive behavior also builds identity. If only insiders know the full meaning of the rules, then belonging becomes more than attendance. It becomes access. Some people interpret this as evidence of hidden doctrines preserved by a spiritual elite. Others see it as a practical feature of a group under social and religious pressure. Either way, secrecy changes how we read the collection. The scrolls may not tell us everything openly. They may preserve only part of a larger pattern of instruction, discipline, and trust. The very act of concealment makes the surviving words feel charged. We are reading material from a world where not everyone was meant to know. Initiation may have required years of testing and obedience. Joining the community described in the rule texts was not a casual decision. It appears to have involved stages of examination, discipline, and gradual access. A person had to prove reliability before full participation was granted. That process suggests a group deeply concerned with trust. They were not simply gathering curious listeners. They were forming a body of committed members whose behavior could affect the purity and fate of the whole. Some people compare this to mystery schools, where knowledge is revealed only after preparation. Others understand it as strict communal organization in a tense religious world. The effect is still fascinating. The path inward was controlled. A new member may have lived for years between outside life and full belonging. That kind of slow initiation creates suspense even now. What did the final stage reveal? What did insiders know that newcomers were not yet allowed to hear? Shared property appears in rules that feel surprisingly radical. The community rule texts describe a system where possessions could be surrendered or controlled as part of entering the group. That is striking because it suggests belonging was not just spiritual. It touched money, security, and personal independence. To join fully, a person may have had to place his resources under communal authority. This would create deep loyalty, but also real dependence. It made leaving difficult and joining meaningful. Some people see this as evidence of a society trying to escape ordinary greed and build a purer order. Others notice how much control such a system could give leaders. The idea feels surprisingly modern because communities still wrestle with wealth, equality, and power. At Qumran, shared property may have been part of preparing for the end of history. If the present world was corrupt, then ordinary ownership might have seemed like one more thing that had to be transformed. Expulsion from the group could carry serious spiritual meaning. Being removed from this community would not have been a minor social embarrassment. If the group believed it possessed the true path, then expulsion could feel like being cut off from the place where salvation, purity, and divine favor were found. The rule texts describe penalties that could limit participation or remove a person from shared life. That tells us membership had spiritual weight. Discipline was not only about keeping order, it was about protecting the community's identity before God. Some people see this as a sign of intense control. Others view it as the natural consequence of a group that believed its mission was sacred. Either way, the stakes were high. A careless action could affect a person's standing. A serious violation could change his future. The fear of exclusion may have helped hold the group together, especially if members believed the world outside was moving toward judgment. The scrolls were scattered through politics, war, dealers, and museums. The modern journey of the manuscripts is almost as complicated as their ancient one. After discovery, pieces moved through a world shaped by changing borders, scholarly competition, private purchase, and institutional control. Some manuscripts reached museums. Others passed through dealers. Some were held closely before publication. This scattered history created both preservation and suspicion. It also made the scrolls part of modern politics, not just ancient religion. Who owns the past? who gets to study it? Who decides when the public can see it? Some people believe the scrolls were caught in deliberate secrecy. Others point to the difficulty of conserving, translating, and organizing thousands of damaged fragments. The drama is undeniable. A collection hidden for centuries emerged into a modern world just as divided as the ancient one. The scrolls did not simply enter history. They entered arguments about authority, access, and control. Scholars waited decades for full access to many fragments. For a long time, access to significant parts of the collection was restricted to a small group. That delay created frustration and suspicion among other researchers and the public. The longer publication took, the more people wondered what might be hidden. Were the fragments difficult to assemble? Was the work simply slow because the task was enormous? Or were controversial discoveries being held back? Some people leaned into the idea of suppression, especially because the scrolls touched the Bible, early Judaism, and the world behind Christianity. Academic explanations focused on the scale of the material and the careful work required. Both sides fed the legend in different ways. The facts were ancient, but the tension was modern. A discovery that promised to open the past became, for a time, a story about closed doors. That waiting period helped turn the scrolls from an archaeological treasure into a cultural mystery. The publication delay created suspicions that secrets were being hidden. This suspicion became one of the most famous modern legends surrounding the scrolls. When people hear that ancient religious manuscripts were discovered and then controlled for decades, the imagination naturally starts working. Perhaps there were texts that challenged familiar beliefs. Perhaps certain institutions feared what might be revealed. Perhaps the greatest discoveries were being withheld. Those ideas spread because the subject was already charged with religious importance. More cautious observers argue that the delay came from limited access, difficult fragments, editorial habits, and the slow pace of specialized scholarship. Yet suspicion has a life of its own. Once people believe a secret is possible, every silence becomes evidence. The scrolls became a perfect canvas for that feeling. They were ancient, fragmentary, and connected to sacred history. Even when more material became available, the aura of secrecy remained. The delay did not only slow research, it permanently changed the public mythology of the discovery. Digital access now lets ordinary people inspect ancient mysteries directly. One of the most remarkable turns in the story is that many images and transcriptions are now far easier to view than they were in the early decades. The scrolls have moved from restricted rooms into the digital world, where students, believers, skeptics, and curious night readers can examine them from far away. That shift changes the relationship between the public and the past. A person no longer has to rely only on gatekeepers or rumors. They can look at fragments, compare translations, and feel the physical strangeness of the manuscripts through high-resolution images. Of course, expertise still matters. Ancient scripts do not become simple just because they are online. But access changes the mood. It opens the archive. Some people see this as a new phase of revelation. Others see it as democratized scholarship. Either way, the scrolls have entered a world their keepers could never have imagined. The greatest mystery remains what still lies hidden in the desert. The known discoveries are extraordinary, but the landscape keeps the imagination restless. The caves near the Dead Sea have already given the world texts that changed history. That fact makes it difficult not to wonder what else might remain beyond the surveyed parts. A sealed niche could still hold a fragment. A disturbed cave could have missed a small bundle. A private collection could contain pieces whose origins were never revealed. Some people believe the desert still protects manuscripts that would transform the story again. Others caution that hope can outrun evidence. Yet the possibility is not absurd, because the first discoveries already proved that ancient writings could survive there under rare conditions. The final mystery is therefore not only about the past. It is about the future of discovery. Somewhere in that severe landscape, there may be nothing left at all, or there may be one more voice waiting in the dark. And so we leave the Dead Sea Scrolls where they have always seemed to belong, somewhere between history and mystery. Tonight, we followed ancient writings from hidden caves into the hands of the modern world. We considered the people who may have guarded them, the rules they may have lived by, and the secrets they may have carried. We looked at lost books, altered versions, strange calendars, final battles, buried treasure, and fragments so small they can still change the shape of the past. Some of these mysteries may one day become clearer. A faded word may return through new technology. A broken fragment may find its missing piece. A cave may offer one last trace of a story that was never fully gone. But other questions may remain exactly where they are. Unnamed figures may keep their names. Hidden motives may stay hidden. The desert may keep some of its silence. And perhaps that is part of why the scrolls still hold us. They remind us that the past is not always a closed room. Sometimes it is a doorway left slightly open. If you enjoyed this journey, you are very welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps this channel reach other curious people who enjoy drifting through old mysteries at the end of the day. And if you are still awake, there should be another sleepy mystery waiting for you on the screen. But for now, let the scrolls rest again. Let the caves grow still in your mind. Let the questions soften at the edges. You do not need to solve anything tonight. You do not need to follow every clue. Just allow the story to settle, like dust returning to an ancient floor. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing slow. And let the mystery fade into the quiet dark. Sleep well, and good night.